I'm really excited about this. Months ago, after I'd interviewed Joe Mulholland, and by the way, this is a special treat for me because I'm actually in Joe's house tonight. I'm actually in a conference in Boston, a medical conference, and usually I'm at home when I do this, but Joe is kind enough to let me stay with him tonight, and we're doing this from here. And Joe, some months ago, said, there's a lot of composers out there that are intelligent, bright, and but their works are kind of predictable and derivative. But I got to tell you, this guy Bob Nieske, he's just such a creative personality. On top of all that, you got to interview him. And so here he is tonight in full regalia. And truth be told, when I saw how he was dressed up, I had to go back and change it to a better shirt because he just sets the bar so high. But welcome, Bob. I really am glad that you're spending time with us tonight. I spent about a week listening to a lot of his music. I certainly can't listen to all of it because he's done so much. And what I love about it is it's jazz, but it's also inspired by many things and quite accessible and covers a number of different genres and instrumentations. And it's just wonderful to listen to. And some of you tonight have joined, I think, because I sent you the first song that we're going to do tonight, which is O Come, O Come Emmanuel, a Christmas song from his Christmas album. And he did some really clever things with it. But before we get into all that, I just want to kind of explore a little bit about who is this guy, Bob Nieske? And, I actually spent some time online. There's wonderful interviews, at least a couple of interviews that I listened to. And I love the one where he talks about his early days and the music, his introduction to music and his frustration on the clarinet and his path. Like he wasn't born deciding he wanted to be, a famous jazz composer. He had other ambitions too. Somehow the doors opened in various directions and he ended up where he is today, which we're very glad he did. But so Bob, maybe with that introduction, you can kind of give us a little bit of your background story.
Sure. Well, the clarinet, I mean, my parents were rather strict. And if you were going to, they wanted us to play instruments.
Were they musical, by the way? Were they?
On my mother's side, her mother's side were very musical. Actually, her mother, my grandmother, this is back before she was born in the late 1800s, and at that time, not in the late 1800s, but when she was in her 20s, which would have been, say like 1918 or, something like that, 1920. She had a job at a department store playing piano, and not to entertain people, but they didn't have records. They didn't have record departments or record stores, or certainly not iPods and anything like that. So what they did have was they had a sheet music department. So people would go and they would say, what's this? This looks interesting. What's it sound like? And they would bring it over to my grandmother, and she would play it for them. And then they would decide if they wanted to buy it. If they bought it, of course, they'd have to go home and learn how to play it themselves.
Right.
But back in those days, people were much more apt, like ordinary, people who, if you wanted music in your home, you had to make it yourself, which is a very different. Even back then, radio was not a big
right.
a big deal. So if you wanted music, you had to make it, and I think. And in a lot of ways, that's probably a good way to be, because you'd be a more informed listener, and you'd have more of an understanding of what it is. But I digress, because what the story you really want is why I don't play the clarinet anymore. That was my first instrument. My mother thought that maybe I should play the clarinet. And I thought, okay. So I started, playing it. We rented a clarinet, and I got, I forget my teacher's name. I started taking lessons every week, half-hour lesson, probably for $2. And it was November, and I had to practice. All of my friends, it was like a Saturday, a weekend day in November, and all of my friends were outside. I was probably maybe 11 years old, 10 years old, something like that. My friends were outside playing, and I was playing the first Noel, and it's had some high notes in it, and I got Noel, Noel, that note there, and I made this horrible squeak, and I was just so frustrated. My friends were out having a good time, and I just took the clarinet like this, and I was sitting next to my bed, and I went pow like that, and it broke right in half, and that was the last time I played clarinet. And my parents, they took it pretty well. They didn't say you can't play another instrument. So although it was a rented instrument, I'm sure they had to pay for the instrument, but it probably wasn't too expensive. After that, I went on to guitar, which I loved, and I played guitar for maybe 2 years. My guitar teacher couldn't support himself as a guitarist, so he played bass on the side, both upright bass and bass guitar. I noticed that during my guitar lessons, he had this beautiful red bass guitar with all these knobs on it, and I said, I think I want to try that. So then we started having lessons half on bass and half on guitar, and I ended up being more interested in the bass, and he said, if you want to be a bass player, you need to go study with a classical teacher, and you need to play upright, because that's the real bass,
the real deal.
Yeah, so I did that. I played upright. I was studying to be a classical bass player. At this point, I started the summer before my freshman year of high school, and I played through the junior year of high school. I played in the Greater Boston Youth Symphony. I played in the Springfield Youth Symphony. I was in Massachusetts All-State, and all of that stuff. And my hand started bothering me. So I thought, I don't know I think it was a psychological thing that I wasn't ready to make that kind of commitment. Even though I wanted to go to music school, I played bass guitar in a little jazz group, but I never played upright bass in a jazz setting in high school. So anyway, I quit playing the bass, and I had been composing throughout high school. I was always fascinated with how two notes, I have my little, I was always fascinated how like two notes, interact, and the vibrations that they make. So I was writing pieces in high school. I wrote a suite for brass quintet. I wrote a couple of choral pieces. I wrote a wind ensemble piece for my high school wind ensemble, which was a good group.
Wow.
And I had all of those things not played in concerts. Actually, I think one of the choral things was done in a concert. But there was enough there that I thought, well, if I'm not a bass player, maybe I can still be a musician. I'll be a composer.
Yeah.
And I applied to New England Conservatory, and I got in, which was a surprise, kind of a surprise to me.
And it's a real rush to have your stuff played, isn't it? When someone,
it's wonderful, yeah.
An amazing feeling, yeah.
Although it can be horrifying. It depends on the performance.
Yeah.
And
well, back then you didn't have a synthesizer. You couldn't mock it up and make sure it all sounded right. You had to really hear it in your head.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. So anyway, I got into the jazz thing through being a composer at New England Conservatory. All of my all of my fellow composition students were improvisers, and so my composition teacher, Tom McKinley, was a terrific jazz pianist. So when I got into the conservatory, I played tuba for a little while, and then my hand felt okay, so I thought, well, maybe I'll go back to guitar. And I studied classical guitar at the conservatory for my first 2 years there. Then my hand felt okay playing guitar, so I thought, well, maybe I can play the bass again. So I went full circle not back to the clarinet, but I went back to the bass.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just think I realized why you went to tuba. Does tuba only use the right hand to do the?
Well, tuba only uses the right hand, and also I could already read bass clef. So
and your left hand was the one that was bothering you, right?
Correct. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
That's why it was tuba. I was trying to figure out why you got the tuba. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't even think of. Well, I always liked the low notes.
Yeah.
Tuba's too hard. Tuba's a really hard instrument.
Yeah. Really? Huh.
Yeah, any brass instrument is a beast.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I started playing bass in an improvisational way, mm-hmm. and never really. I could still, I still played, a little bit of classical stuff, but just for exercises, because mm-hmm. that's scales and arpeggios and things like that. But from that point on, I was a classical composer and a jazz musician.
And what I like about that is it lends itself to this first song we're going to play. Unless you want to say a few more things, but this "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel" is in part based on a Shostakovich symphony. Did you want to say a few more things before we get into that? Because it may be
sure.
Okay, so
yeah.
let me do this. Let me first get myself off the spotlight here so that we can have it. It's going to be you, and then I'm going to share a screen here.
Hey.
And there you are. And let's see. Here we go. Okay, and then let me get back to the one you were talking about earlier. So this, first of all, some background. This is the Shostakovich Symphony Number 13, Babi Yar. So what I love is that you took that concept and you basically took it to a whole new level, and you superimpose that for "O Come, O Come, Emmanuel," and I think that it's really a wonderful thing. So here it is. I think this is especially interesting, especially with respect to when you talk about your fascination with how notes interplay with each other, because there's definitely a whole interplay going on here. And how did you even know the notes are going to work? Because I was thinking that there's such an intricate scaffolding going on here, and how maybe the notes don't always match up, but it sounds wonderful. So how you
right?
It's just brilliant the way this came together.
Well, I took the main idea of that the Shostakovich thing. I changed the notes. They're not the. It's not the exact. It's not the. Yeah. It's. They're. Yeah. I didn't steal. I stole the feeling of it.
Yeah. I'd like to say you're inspired by it.
Yes. And and I just put that down as kind of a pillow And one thing that's interesting about it is it's actually hard for me to talk over it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll shut that off.
Because I can't not listen to it.
Yeah. It really is amazing. Yeah.
So it's a the background. Turns into a background thing. That's the thing, and it's in 9. Me be do be do be do be do bo 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 be do bo. So it's 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3
Wow.
4. And so I put that down as an ostinato kind of thing, which is just a repeated phrase.
Sure.
And over the top of it, just really clearly the melody that everybody knows, you know. Which is clearly in 4/4. 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. So you've got a little bit of a juxtaposition of something that's in a group of 9,
yeah,
and then something that's in 4/4.
Yeah.
So it creates a kind of sort of a dreamy, kind of a dreamy feeling to it.
Interplay, yeah.
And it's also there are no chords for the first part of it. There are no chords. It's just 2 lines.
Yeah.
And I've always really liked a linear approach to things, and even later on, the part where when you started to fade it out. So that first part was pure Shostakovich, and then this other little part with the answering. And then whatever it does, I'm a terrible pianist. That's also out of a Shostakovich thing somewhere. I mean, that's nothing. There's nothing earth-shattering about having a figure be answered, but
of course, yeah.
But
when I go home this weekend, I'm going to try to play both those parts at the same time with my left hand and right hand and see if I get how far I get. But the engineering part of me would be worried about, does every note match up, and is there ever some dissonance? But if there is some dissonance, it's just beautiful. I mean, the whole way it comes together is just magnificent. So I could listen to this piece all day, but given that we only have about a half an hour left, I think I want to cover some other stuff with you. But
sure, I could say one little thing about dissonance.
Yeah.
In relationship to linear music, is the ear has this is my theory anyway. The ear is much more attracted to things that move through time, like from in our situation from left to right, or a melody 1 2 3 4, than things that happen at the same time. So if you have 2 lines going on, the ear is kind of, even if you have dissonances happening vertically,
it forgives it, kind of.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. It forgives it. It almost doesn't hear it.
Yeah, interesting.
Because you're listening to the line.
There's a whole trajectory.
Yeah, you're hearing 2 lines and where they're going, and if the line makes sense, it almost doesn't matter so much what's happening vertically.
We have to call that the Nieske effect.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll take credit for it. Yeah.
I love it. Well, let's go on to the next thing we have lined up, and there's so much to go through. So, but the next thing we want to talk about is your marmalade mix. Do you want to talk a little bit about that again? Yeah.
Yeah. This is another one of my. I like to. For me, music is, it's like solving a puzzle. Like like how can I put things together? It's not necessarily about trying to express a particular thought or emotion, even though you could, the people listening might have a lot. If you listen to the O Come Emmanuel, for some people that's going to be really a sad thing. For some people it's going to be really beautiful, depending on what your life's experience is.
Sure.
So for me, I don't really try to express a particular feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I enjoy the act of composing it, and there's a certain amount of joy to it that comes when you're trying to do a puzzle, you're trying to get the last piece, or not the last piece because the last piece is easy. But you're trying to do a jigsaw puzzle, and you found a piece, and then there's a particular type of satisfaction you get when you find where that piece goes, and you put it into the puzzle, you press it into the puzzle, and it's like, oh, that's beautiful. And there's a feeling. If there wasn't, people wouldn't go through the trouble of doing jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah.
There's something very rewarding about it, and a lot of what happens in music for me is that kind of thing. I'm trying to solve puzzles, even if when I'm playing the jazz, a jazz, even like a walking bass part through a jazz tune. It's a puzzle. I'm trying to solve the puzzle of figuring out how to, with just playing quarter notes, boom, 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 how to come up with an interesting way of playing quarter notes that makes the type of a melody that goes through the chord changes.
That's great. Yeah.
And
I never thought of it as a puzzle, but that's a cool way to look at it.
And so that's kind of how I look at it. And with this tune Marmalade, I thought, sometimes you get stuck and you need some kind of inspiration. Whether you're a scientist or a painter or a composer. And so what some composers do is they try to invent. You try to come up with something intellectual, and then you apply your musicianship to it, and some sort of inspiration or something, and you try to make something out of it that's a solid piece of work, And so I was thinking, what if I take the first part of two scales, so the E major scale, and then a B flat major scale, and put them together. It also happens to be two whole steps and two half steps, and then two whole steps, and then two half steps. So in the classical world of theory and stuff that I studied in college, that would be called a symmetrical scale because it's symmetrical.
Cool.
In other words, it's two whole steps, two half steps, two whole steps, two half steps, and it keeps repeating like that. The other symmetrical scales, could be a whole tone scale. There are a ton of them. But anyway, I said, this is cool, and now what can I do with it? So that was setting up the problem. So once you set up the problem, then you go about trying to solve the problem. And so solving the problem was, and it always has to do with restrictions. Like a scale is a restriction. an instrumentation, a string quartet, that's a restriction. 2 violins, viola, and cello. Mm-hmm. Every restriction you impose on yourself is a way of forcing you to think creatively. So I put that restriction of that scale in there. I also put the restriction in of the instrumentation. I wanted to write a piece for my new band, which has trumpet, trombone, tenor saxophone, guitar, bass, and drums. And I wanted it to be, maybe a moderate tempo, but not even that. So I just started playing around with it. And then you start playing around with it, and you start getting little ideas, little snippets, just something like that, 2 notes. And you start fooling around with it, and something catches your ear for one reason or another, and you say, okay, that's kind of cool. What do I do with that? Now, how do I work with that? And then this tune, Marmalade, came out. So if you wanted to play some of it, you could hear what I did. Everything in this song is based on that scale. All of the chords, everything that everyone is improvising over, is based on those 8 notes. You'll also notice there are no chords in this, it's all lines.
I have to be candid with you, in my untrained ear, it just sounds like great jazz to me, but now that I know that there's a whole other layer of like this creative, intelligence on top of it, it makes it that much more interesting. Love it. We could listen to this all day, but we've got so much to cover. I wanted to ask you, how did your musicians handle it? Was it extra stressful to try to figure out the notes, or are they just so good they just read the notes as they are? I mean, I would find if I'm not in a normal scale that I would know, it'd be a stretch that like must be incidentals all over the place or whatever. So,
well, they didn't. I actually used for the solo sections. I took the notes of the scale and made chords out of them. So, and then from making the chords out of them, the jazz musicians are used to reading chord symbols, which is, in some ways, if people listening are maybe familiar with Renaissance or actually Baroque music, that also used chord symbols, and they called it figured bass. They would give you the bass line, and then they would put a 4 or a 6 above it, which would mean that the keyboard player, the organist, would play the root or the bass note, and then play a 4th above it and a 6th above it. And so the musicians I used, I explained to them about this scale, and I said, if you just play this scale, you could play this scale over anything, over any of the chords,
Cool.
and it will work. You
That's
know,
great.
um,
That's great.
but they didn't do that.
Oh, what did they do?
They read the chord symbols.
Uh-huh.
So which means that when they're improvising, they're not really thinking about that particular scale. They're thinking about, because chord symbols can imply several different interpretations.
So if I understand it, they could play anything within that chord structure and they're safe. Is that the way you think about it?
Yes.
Yeah. That's cool. Oh, that's very cool. All right.
Yeah.
God, we have, this is always frustrating because I want to have people know everything that you do. It's not gonna happen, but
no, that's fine. Oh, one thing
fine.
I could, let me put out a plug this just came out. I don't know if people can see it.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me stop sharing so that they can really see it. There we go.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Does it look like it's, on my screen it's backwards, but can you?
No, it's definitely right.
Okay.
Nieske,
So this is the band I wrote these 8 pieces for.
Great.
And I just got this in the mail today.
Wonderful.
It will be for sale, like I'm not going to. I have some that I can sell people individually, but you're not going to be able to go to a CD store and get this because you can't find a CD store. But you'll be able to get it probably within a couple of months. You'll be able to get it on iTunes and Amazon Music and Spotify and all of that stuff. Yep. Or if you want to, if you're old-fashioned like me and you want an actual copy of it, you could send me an email at my name, Bobnieske, all one word and all lowercase. At Gmail. Send me an email and I'll send you one for you give me $10 and I'll send you one.
Yeah. You know what? When we usually when we close this out, we'll send a note to everyone that attended and all the registered ones. We'll make sure they know that. That's excellent.
Great.
Yeah. Please do that, folks. I'd rather have you support the musicians directly because Spotify pays like 2 cents or something ridiculous. So let's give the composers what they're due. That's great. Okay. So the next one, because this is one of my favorites, this is Sonata for Flute and Piano, a whole nother, talk about different parameters or different rules to be within. Now you've got this flute piano concept. You want to talk about, before we get into it, just a little bit about the constructs on that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's like I'm still straddling the my education at at New England Conservatory I have a master's degree, and my bachelor's and master's degree were both in classical composition.
Yeah.
The thing that it's kind of funny that the thing that I end up teaching is not what I studied, but it's the thing that I just learned by playing with my friends, jazz music. I never studied jazz music formally, although every time you play with someone, you're studying. When I play with Joe Mulholland, a great piano player, I'm studying. I'm hearing what he's doing. Oh, that's what okay. And then he'll say, well, maybe on this tune, maybe I want the bass to do this. Oh, okay, that's a great idea. So so even if someone said, nobody is self-taught is what I'm trying to what I'm trying to say. If you're learning anything, you're learning it by paying attention to what other people are doing. And
Joe is like a harmony genius. So you have any harmony stuff, man, Joe will tell you how to do it.
He actually he literally wrote the book.
Wrote the book, yeah.
Yeah. But this piece, so this was something that I had originally written a violin sonata for violin and piano for a friend of mine, Judy Eisenberg, who used to be in the Lydian String Quartet over at Brandeis, and she never played it. She looked at it, but she never played it. I don't think maybe she didn't like it so much, or who knows. But then many years later, 15 years later, I met this flute player named Linda Bento Ray, and she's good buddies with another friend of mine, and she said, I want you to write me something. So I, being, somewhat, I'm not lazy, but I'd like to get the most out of what I have. Sure. And I had this piece, and I knew I liked it for violin and piano. And I told her that. I said, well, I've got this sonata, and I could rewrite it for flute. And so I did, and it came out great. I redid some of the piano parts. If you're writing something for violin, you have the possibility of playing two notes at the same time, which you can't do on the flute. So I had to figure out, I had a lot of things that I had written on the violin that had, double stops, two notes at the same time. So I had to figure out how to make it work for the flute. Sometimes I would take out one of the two notes, or sometimes I would use the two notes melodically instead of at the same time. And she really liked it. And then she said, it's not long enough. So can you add a fourth movement? And I said, yeah, I can do that. So I did. So I wrote a fourth movement. I think the movement that you have is the second movement.
Yeah.
Now I'm not a piano player, and I stole a lot of stuff from Shostakovich for some of the piano flute things. By the way, Linda Bento Ray is the flute player on the Christmas stuff. And so when I write something for piano, I go and I study piano writing that I really like. And at the time I was writing this piece, I was really loving Charles Ives and his violin sonatas. They're just, if you haven't checked them out, Charles Ives, everyone thinks is very weird, but and some of his stuff is really hard to listen to. You use the word accessible at the beginning of this, and some of Charles Ives' stuff is not accessible even to me. But his violin sonatas are very accessible. Some of them he wrote. I think one he wrote for one of his kids. So this is some of the language in this is coming out of sort of the Charles Ives piano school, whatever that is.
Excellent. Let's give this a shot.
Yeah.
Just lovely. I want to encourage people, go to soundcloud.com and look for Bob Nieske. He's got a whole array of beautiful music there. So I could just listen to it, and all four movements, just a lot of fun, just great. Any final comments before we move to the next one? Because there's just so much I'd like to cover here.
Yeah, I mean, some things in that piece are, you just played a little bit of a snippet of it.
Yeah.
There are that piece does sort of take from both classical and jazz, the da 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 da, That's a ride cymbal beat. That's what the drummer. That's what a drummer plays in a swing tune. Boom, do da do da da do do da da. And then be dee da da do da da bo do da da is almost like a little folk song. And Ives always put in.
That's an 18th century hymn, Joe says. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, is it?
18th century hymn, yeah.
I didn't intend it to be.
Well, it's okay. You were inspired.
But it's the kind of thing that Ives would just throw in somewhere.
Yeah.
So I threw that in, and then the part where we just stopped, the flute goes back into the da do da do da do do, and the piano's going boot up da da boot up da da boot up. So it's like a little groove, almost like a little jazz groove.
Yeah, yeah.
And then there's a written out. Linda Bento Ray is not an improviser. So I essentially wrote out a solo,
nice,
for her to play over the piano. So all of those things are getting kind of tossed around. Here again, it's solving a puzzle.
Yeah. I'm going to skip some stuff, but I do want to mention. I also love the fact that you have amazing. You have a lot of fun with the names of some songs, like this next one, "Simple Flying." It's a great tongue twister, and it's a really nice high beat song. The Brush Off, which I thought was about someone being, turned down, but it's basically a play on the words of the brushing effect on the drums and the snare drum. I want to jump to Wolf Soup because this is actually a couple of things. One is this highlights the three different CDs you have out. And was Wolf Soup the name of your band? Is that what that was?
That was the name of the band. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a friend named Sharon Wolf who was one of these people that you could take all of these, any kind of ingredients that you didn't think would go together, and she would make this amazing soup out of it. So I wrote it. Because the idea of having Wolf Soup kind of right. And that's kind of like the people in the band are all very different, but when you put them together, they it makes it's nourishing.
That's very cool. I do want to highlight this one image of you flying in the air, and there's a little story behind that. So tell me how that picture happened. You actually did that, right? That's not suspended with cables or anything.
No, that's real.
That's actually jumped up like that, and they captured you. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, that's probably around the early 1990s. I was playing with a group called the Either Orchestra. That's another great title, which is still going strong. They're a terrific small big band that was around here back in the. I played with them in the early 90s, and one of a friend of the leader of the band, Russ Gershon, was a photographer, and he was trying to put together an advertisement for his photography. And he said, I have this idea. I want to have a trumpet. It's going to be a photograph of a trumpet laying down and having little musicians being blown out of the end of the trumpet.
Great.
So he had, and he said, if you come and model for me, then you can use one of the pictures, for whatever you want. So I took my bass, and I'm wearing my suspenders and my hat and everything, and I was 30 years younger, and I just jumped up. I did that for about 45 minutes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just jumping up in different ways.
Wow.
And that's one that worked. And if you notice
flying there, man, that's awesome. Yeah. So one of the pieces from here we're going to play next. By the way, I just noticed you have faces appearing in the lettering. I didn't see that before. So which are you here?
I'm the one you. Let me see. You can't even see me on there.
No, you're not in there. Huh.
No.
Oh, maybe this is you. Kind of hidden
No,
there a little bit.
that's Tom Hall.
Oh.
John Damien's on the left. Tom Hall. Then Jimmy Cameron, and Nat McGavro. Maybe I'm in between the L and the F, and
Oh my God.
didn't come through. Yeah.
Didn't come through. I love it. Well, anyway, that's wonderful. Let's do a few more here. We have
Sure.
Heart. You want to talk about a little bit that's a very different thing.
Heart.
This is an instrumental. Yeah.
This is another one about stealing.
Inspired by.
Inspired. Well, Stravinsky said great composers, lesser composers borrow, great composers steal, or something.
Oh,
like
okay.
that.
Then it's stealing.
So then I'd like to call it stealing.
Okay.
This one is a combination of it starts off with the bass part in double stops, and if you remember Bob Dylan's tune, don't think twice, it's all right. You can sing that with the bass part. It works perfectly. So the bass part, I didn't really realize that until afterwards, but I was going for kind of a folksy kind of thing. And then the melody, the trumpet melody, do be dee dee do bo do be do. That was inspired by, to use your phrase, Fiddler on the Roof.
Really?
Da da dee 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 da da dee da da.
Okay.
I forget which. Some of the listeners would probably know which one.
Yeah.
Which it's definitely it's a snippet of a Fiddler on the Roof tune.
Yeah.
And
Bob,
then,
why did you call it Heart? What's the background for that?
now this one here, it feels like that. It feels like a loving kind of thing. And then the second part of the melody is be dee doo dee de dee do be dee de do, and that's from Oscar Pettiford's tune Blues in the Closet. So just the melody of this and the bass part. You have Bob Dylan, Oscar Pettiford's tune Blues in the Closet, and Fiddler on the Roof.
I love it. By the way, Bob, is that you conducting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
a concert from the England Conservatory, the Conservatory Big Band.
These are all students, I assume, at the new conservatory?
Yep.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, good band.
Yeah. Very nice. Let's see if we can just grab one more here. I know it's almost 8 o'clock. I wanted to just point out some of these others, just the titles. There's a bus that's leaving soon for Alan Berg's house.
Yeah.
I love these titles, but I want to play a little of the stretch, especially
Sure.
the longer version that has a really wonderful string. And actually, the strings are actually stretching. I can feel the stretching of it, but maybe there's more of the story to share before we go into it. You let me know.
This is originally I had a trio of trumpet, bass, and drums, and we've played together quite a bit. And then, as I said about the sonata for violin, I met the Lydian String Quartet because I work at Brandeis and they're the house string quartet. So I thought I would try to do a project with my trio and the Lydian String Quartet. So I arranged some pieces of mine that I wrote originally just for trumpet, bass, and drums. I arranged them for string quartet plus that group. So that's why you're hearing this the string quartet here.
Yeah, excellent. Let me get that on here right now. Can't thank you enough, Bob. This has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you.
Ask you. The Lydian String Quartet. Now, does this mean that things are all done in Lydian scales in this, or that was just a kind of a name that was used?
That's just their cool name.
Yeah, it's a very cool name. Well, I want to thank you for your time. It's been very generous, and we spent some time prepping for this and everything, and I enjoyed a week's worth of listening to your music. I want to encourage people to, go to, just type in Bob Nieske online, but go to things like the SoundCloud, and you probably have some other things as well. We can send some links to in the email follow-up on this for people. And again, I encourage you to buy the album, send them an email and send $10, and let's get that going too. But thank you again. I can't thank you enough. It's been a lot of fun, and I know I'm going to spend some time this weekend trying to play those two hands.
There you go.
9 against 5. It's going to be kind of fun to see. But
yeah,
that was really quite amazing.
Well, it's slow.
It'll do it really slowly. Yeah. Thanks again to Bob.
Thank you. This has been
a great evening.
It's been great for me. Thank you both.
Excellent.